Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is the hollow bone, being the hollow bone, being the conduit for life and life's purest expression through the unique vessel that we are, and how when we let go of who we believe ourselves to be, we can actually become more of who we were meant to be. So it should be a fun conversation. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together, vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the pressure, the temperature, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop. And allow all those sensations to bring you present, right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience all of life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. Good morning. It's great to have you here with us. And welcome to everyone else who's joining us. Today, we're going to be speaking about becoming more and more of the hollow bone. And what does it take? What does it take to find our greatest fulfillment? And I'm playing with the notion, and it's been very rewarding, playing with the notion that who I am, who we are ultimately, is life expressing itself through the unique vessel that we are. So we each come with gifts. And I think I know we've spoken about this before, but I think it's a great opportunity to remember that the gifts that we come with are not ours, that they are ours to give, that they are ours to share with the world, that they're a gift to us that gives to us when we give it forward, when we give it to the world. So if you have a musical gift, or you have the gift of intelligence, or you have the gift of a particular passion for something, that is yours not to be apologetic about, not to be feeling like, well, if I have this, what about the people who don't? So I'm going to dim my light because other people don't have that same ability. Or even believing that, oh, it's not that I have a gift. Everybody can do that. It's not true. It's not true that everybody can do everything that everybody else does. We each have different gifts. And to be apologetic for those gifts is in my exploration. Don't believe what I say, by the way. Test it out, check it out, see if it resonates for you. I'm just sharing what I've come to and what I'm experimenting with. And I invite you to try it on and see if it's as impactful for you as it has been for me. And by the way, if you're putting comments that I'm not responding to, it's because I don't see your comments. So I don't know if you're, for instance, putting comments on my page, and I'm not responding to them. You might want to go to the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and put comments there, and then I should be able to see them. Anyway, we make excuses for ourselves to not follow our passions. And those excuses are often culturally supported excuses. So if you have this deep passion in your heart to create art, for example, one of the things that people tend to do is to say, I'll do that after I do this, after I'm successful, or after I do all these other things that are so much more important. And whatever that calling of the heart is gets left in the background. And this notion of being, good morning, Dido, welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning. When you recognize the passion that you have, and you have the courage to feed it, it feeds you. And those of us who have had a passion that allow ourselves to get beyond the excuses around practicality and listen to those whispers at first, sometimes shouts of the heart that are calling us into our most authentic expression. When we have the courage to listen to those and to be true to them, my perspective is that's when we are really fulfilling life's intention for us most fully. And it takes listening. It takes listening, and it takes courage, because often those murmurs, whisperings, shouts are counter to the conventions of our culture. Well, it's not practical, you might be telling yourself, or other people might tell you, you can't make money doing that. How are you going to make a living? What happens is that this scarcity mentality asserts itself, and we use it to cudgel ourselves into submission and mediocrity and normalcy, with big air quotes around it. So how many people do you know who are truly happy doing what they're doing, who are truly excited about what they're doing in life? These are the people that are finding alignment with their heart's desire, with their heart's expression, with life's will for them. And I know I'm speaking about life. And again, this is something I've been trying on, and it's been very, very rich, a deep, rich exploration that keeps getting deeper, to be exploring what if who I am is life's expression through this vessel. So there are a bunch of things that happen as we become the hollow bone. Life flows more easily. And we're not trying to control it anymore, because we're allowing ourselves, instead of trying to control and direct and command life, we're serving life instead, and serving our gifts. How about that? Instead of, we have this gift, it's mine. And by acknowledging it, we have this fear that we do ego identify with it, rather than recognizing that it's not our gift to hold, it's our gift to give. And it's a very different perspective. It's a very different perspective, where we get to choose whether we give those gifts or not. And when we generate those gifts to give, when we live into those gifts to give, they give to us. They feed us on a multitude of levels. So some of us are gifted storytellers, and to be able to, good morning, Robin, welcome. So good to have you here with us. We are talking about being the hollow bone, being the purest expression of life's intentions for us each, uniquely as possible. And so, for instance, some of us are gifted storytellers, writers, investigators, and you know who you are. And to be, big air quotes, indulging that passion is bringing life and vitality and richness and fulfillment and joy. And to be willing to give ourselves those things that give us that fulfillment, that's being willing to embrace life and its richness and its I say its intention for us, that we're given these gifts, the gifts that keep on giving, right? They give to us and they give to those we give to. And it may not be that your gifts are gifts that are shared among humans, for example. Maybe you have gifts for connecting with nature, or, maybe you have artistic inklings, leanings. It doesn't mean you have to create works for sale. It doesn't mean it has to look a particular way. It just, whatever that gift is, needs to find its expression. And so when we start the richness of the subjective experience of being, identifying oneself as life itself in its expression, is super powerful in releasing us from trying to control things. We don't have to figure it out. We don't have to figure it out. We get to move with the flow of life through the hollow bone. And so the hollow bone is the unique vessel that we are. And as life flows through in all the lessons, so there are light parts and dark parts and joyful parts and sorrowful parts, and that's all part of life's expression. And as we allow it to move without impeding it, as we learn to impede it less and less, we experience more and more of the richness of life. And if we are life itself, then by virtue of that awareness and presence to that truth, if indeed it is true for you, or you find its truth for yourself, then what happens is that we are connected to all of life. And that is the deepening. That is the even greater fulfillment. To be connected, to be an integral element, to be part of the essential expression of the fullness of life, experiencing itself, or consciousness, or God, whatever you choose to call it. But we become connected to everything. And so we're going to be talking more and more about being connected, because this is what the world needs. The strife in the world is a function of separation, a function of duality, of good, bad, right, wrong, just, unjust. And even if we carry the banner for a just cause, the more we fight, the more we resist, the more we solidify that against which we fight. And so there's the opportunity to elevate ourselves to another level of awareness, being responsive. We talk about being sovereign and being responsive. So sovereign, I'm sure that my meaning for that is not necessarily the common meaning, but what I mean by that is to be able to be present enough to respond appropriately, rather than being dominated and controlled by the prevalent programmed thinking that as we listen more deeply, this is why it takes courage to be the hollow bone, because it means truly deeply listening to one's most authentic heart, one's most authentic, deepest desires. And I remember, just as a practical example, I remember when I was embarking on a new phase of life. This was about 2017. And I had this vision of the eco park. And my passion was to start this Sustainability Now podcast and to be connecting with people all over the world. And I love this, Dido. So Dido says, so sovereign as in standing in and on your own sacred ground. I love that. Yes, that's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I love that you use the word sacred, because that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about ego. We're not talking about whim. We're not talking about domination and control. We're talking about standing in and on your own sacred ground, in your own sacred truth. And so we're not talking on a superficial level. This is why the listening is so important, because it's easy to get carried away with the more superficial wants and desires, or shiny objects that we get obsessed with. We're not talking about obsessions. We're talking about our deepest yearnings. Those deepest yearnings are the clue to what we came here to do, what we came here to be. And you may not believe that we came here for any particular reason, and that's okay too. You know, you get to be in that, and perhaps you might have a willingness to entertain the possibility that there's an intelligence to the universe, we're learning, science is even learning more and more of the interconnections and the intelligences of elements of the universe that we didn't even conceive of having any kind of sentience at all. When we look at the networks created by trees, the roots of trees, and how they're communicating with each other and how they're transiting nutrients from one to another and interacting with this vast mycelial network that is connecting life around the world. And one of the wonderful examples of intelligence that I just love is slime mold. Look up slime mold. So slime mold is, I think it's a unicellular creature, but they've done experiments with slime mold by putting it in a maze. And the slime mold just sort of fills the whole maze and then retracts to pass the most efficient way through the maze. And they actually did an experiment with the subway system. I don't know if it was in Japan or a US city, I don't know where it was, but the slime mold was able to create a the most efficient pathway and pretty much replicated the subway system. Now, what is that? So Rubin says trees creating our oxygen. Well, trees do generate oxygen. Trees oxygenate the planet. I'm not sure it's for us specifically. We get to benefit from the magnificence of what trees do. And the same with mycelial networks, the same with other plants and animals. They're doing their thing. They're creating and generating life and balance. And then we get in the middle thinking we know better. We know how to control it. A great example of that is the story of Yellowstone, Yellowstone Park, where they had pretty much killed off all the wolves. And then they started reintroducing wolves, and wolves are what's called a keystone species. Because what would happen, there's a wonderful video called Wolves Change Rivers, I think, or How Wolves Change Rivers, and something like that. And what was happening is that there were certain animals that were eating away at the trees and the plants along the river edges. And when they reintroduced the wolves started hunting some of these animals. And so they weren't able, I'm really oversimplifying it, because there is a whole chain of interactions. But what happened was that ultimately, through that chain, the animals that were eating the things that the saplings or whatever it was that would be securing the boundaries of the river were no longer doing that. So trees could grow, so the boundaries of the river could strengthen, and they actually changed. Dido, thank you. I knew I could count on you. So Dido put a link in the chat for the video, How Wolves Change Rivers. And recently at our movie night for Sustainability Now, we showed another video that was wonderful. And I don't know that I can recall. Oh, it's called Grasslands. Oh, Dido says, I also found the slime mold video. Thank you for that. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So we think all this is for us. We're just another species on the planet. And we've had kind of a destructive influence, not kind of. And we do have the capacity to have a constructive influence. We just need to be exploring that more, not from the vantage point of what's good for us and that everything on the planet is there for our use and abuse, but maybe connecting to the planet and how can we be contributing to its flourishing. Anyway, it's flourishing rather than our flourishing, because if it flourishes, we can flourish with it, right? Anyway, the movie is Grasslands, the ABCs of the life cycle. Each of us has a purpose. Thank you, Robin. Exactly. And that's where we started, being the hollow bone, connecting to life and recognizing that all of life is connected. So just to get back to this, PBS has a wonderful documentary series. It might be called Evolution Earth. And one of the episodes is called Grasslands. And it was talking about the importance of grasslands and that grasslands actually act as a better carbon sink than the rainforest. And that while planting trees is a wonderful thing, trees burn and they take years and years and years to mature and do their thing. And I'm not saying grasslands instead of trees. Please don't misconstrue that. We're talking about both and. Anyway, with grasslands, when they burn, that most of the carbon sequestration is under the soil, and they also replenish very quickly. And I think that's it, probably, Dido. It's from, yeah, that looks like it probably is. I really recommend you watch it because it talks about the importance of all these species that we've eradicated. It starts talking about wildebeests in Africa and how they were afraid that the wildebeest would be destroying the Serengeti, and instead there grew to be millions, over 1 million wildebeests, and they tore up the Serengeti and they would migrate. And what happened as they are tearing up the ground and migrating and leaving dung, they're dung beetles that bury the dung. And what happened is that the Serengeti just got incredibly lush and green because of these natural cycles. And when it gets incredibly lush and green, it changes the climate, the water cycle, all kinds of things. So watch these things. I really invite you to look at the interconnectedness of life, and we're part of it. And the more we allow ourselves to connect with that flow of life through us, with ourselves as that vital expression, the more connected we will become with the entirety of life. And perhaps the more conscious we'll become about how we interact with the rest of life and consciousness. So that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel, and hopefully my pages as well. It is always a privilege and a pleasure to be able to have these conversations with you. And I invite you to please check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network and make way on your calendar for October 30th, Day of Peace, where we can collectively put our attentions to shifting the frequency on the planet.